Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with Moor Insights Strategy, and we are here for another 6-5 live podcast, video cast, depending on the media that you use. And I'm here in Austin, Texas, and I am joined by my amazing co-host, Daniel Newman, co-founder, co-partner, co-something of Futurum Research. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, buddy. So still the founding partner, principal analyst at Futurum Research, and always excited to do this multi-research firm podcast that we do on a week in and week out basis. And boy, it's 2021 been off to a hot start. And this week, well, I'd like to say it's all about CES, but we've been on twice now. Big acquisition news, Qualcomm acquiring Nvidia, that got a show. And then we had a big executive shakeup with Intel's hiring Pat Gelsinger from VMware. So we jumped on and did that one too. But now we're here for a more traditional 6-5 here, Pat, covering the 6 biggest things that we heard, saw, and are thinking about in the wake of CES 2021, which wrapped up yesterday, I believe.
That's right, Daniel. Normally, we would be tired. We'd be flying back from Las Vegas right now. Neither of us are big partiers, but it is hard to get good sleep in Las Vegas, if nothing more than a time difference. But let's cover the big topics. And as a reminder, this is not for investment purposes. It's for informational, educational, and fun purposes only. We will talk about public companies. So let's jump right in and talk about what HP did. You know, we had a great chance to talk to President HP Inc. President Alex Cho. We had him on for an insider segment to talk about what he was talking about. So I think both of us have an edge on here, and I'm going to put my gratuitous Forbes article on here. Daniel, you had a good wrap up as well. So check his Forbes article out as well. But HP had a lot of great stuff, and it was all about the 3 C's: collaboration, communication, culture. Yeah, thank you. But they brought out a lot of awesome products, and I think first and foremost, Dragonfly G2. If you remember, Dragonfly is this amazing, crazy blue color, thin, light, and connected 2-in-1. I talked about this being a device that people do fight for in my house because it is so different and unique. And essentially, they added 5G and Wi-Fi 6. Pretty cool, Daniel. If you haven't been sampled on that, oh my gosh, look it's us. How about that? If you haven't been sampled on that yet, be sure to do that. Next is the Dragonfly Max, and like many vendors, HP upped its ante in collaboration, adding a 5-megapixel camera, eye-ease display, and a bevy of array microphones. This is something that I'm going to have to test to fully see the impact of it. And there's a pretty picture of it. And then probably the most unique and different announcement were wireless earbuds. And the way that Alex Cho explained it is they put a lot of energy into the voice aspect of it. And I don't think that means music is not going to play well, but putting a lot of energy into, collaboration. So really good stuff from HP. I can't wait to bring it out. And one final one, maybe Daniel, you want to talk about the Elite Folio with the Qualcomm Snapdragon inside?
Yeah, I mean, the Elite Folio brings a whole bunch of form function, a device that's really, it's really rooted in ergonomics, designed to give a lot of flexibility, playing somewhere in between that Surface device and that iPad device. And a really high quality materials are impressive, a really nice look, very lightweight. And using that stock from Qualcomm that we're really excited about. But overall, Pat, just as a quick note on HP as a whole, this company has continued to push the envelope, innovate. We've had Alex Cho on a few times. The whole PC is essential narrative really found legs at scale in 2020. And this continues into 2021, Pat. The first 6 months of this year are going to look a whole lot like 2020. Remote work is going to be perpetual. And the company, I think, put a nice forward-thinking line of new solutions and products out that hit both the spaces, the consumer space and the commercial space, which, by the way, the demarcation continues to shrink, especially in the knowledge worker group. And I was the first to say when the earbuds launched, I was like, oh, great, more earbuds. Like, yeah, just what we need. But I like the story of essentially saying we built something in that's simple, that's integrated, that works. Now, remember why people like Apple's earbuds so much, the AirPods so much, is that seamless, ubiquitous experience to tying it to your iPhone, your iPad, et cetera. That's really the thinking HP had here is what if you had a device that was streamlined, simple, especially for all those Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams meetings, or anything else, watching movies, playing games. Of course, not at the top end, but, if you just need something to use while you're in motion. So a really solid launch this week, Pat.
Yeah, so let's move over to Dell Technologies. And let me put up my gratuitous article.
You only get to say gratuitous one more time.
Yeah, gratuitous. There we go.
That's it.
Actually, we're going to talk about it. We're going to use the word 4 more times as we go through this. I just thought it was the best way to highlight it. And I think people sometimes might prefer to look at this stuff versus stare at you and I the whole day. So Dell, similarly to HP, really leaned into new types of collaboration equipment. They did obviously go and improve their software, like the Dell Optimizer. So Dell Optimizer is basically using AI and ML to improve the performance, to improve battery life, and also improve the ergonomics. You might say, well, what do you mean by ergonomics? Well, if Optimizer knows that you're using it on a lap, it's going to take heat and move that away from your lap. It's magic. Now, the last Dell I used didn't use Optimizer like that as default, but I'm looking forward to see if Dell's going to do this into the future. Dell also updated its business laptops and workstation, and they added some pretty cool stuff, a thing called Safe Shutter. So automatically, if you're not using your camera, it closes the shutter. A physical piece of plastic covers it, and it's a little red dot. And when you're using it, it pops open. And so I'm thinking that gone are the days of us putting tape over our camera, and I think that's pretty cool. Using a physical system that's auto magic to be able to do that. And if you think about it, I know nothing's easy out there, but when it senses it has electricity, it opens. When it doesn't, it closes. And I think that's pretty cool. Also, adding 11th gen processors from Intel, which I'm pretty excited about. You get a much better CPU and a much better GPU. Okay, let's go down to one of the most interesting things, and this is video conferencing monitors. Okay, so a classic monitor, it doesn't have a microphone array. And it doesn't have a camera. So if you're at work and you come in with your notebook, you're going to have, let's say you've got a 13-inch notebook. The camera might be looking more up your nose. Sure, most of these systems, new notebooks have array microphones, but not as wide as, let's say, a monitor. So Dell has these new video conferencing monitors with a better camera, and 27 inches and 34 inches, meaning a much better microphone. The key here is that they're Microsoft Teams certified, and that means there's a dedicated button that you press when you want to do this. And you can see it right there, a 5-megapixel camera, an IR camera, dual 5-watt speakers, and canceling microphone. And Daniel, you once had a CEO job in this space. You know the benefit when you know what kind of sensors you're dealing with related to the quality of your collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big rollout, the line, and Dell always has a pretty comprehensive CES. We're seeing the advancements in everything. A couple of things that caught my attention: the application of the Intel 11th Gen and the Evo line. I saw your post, Pat, on I believe it was LinkedIn, but my immediate reaction is Intel, and we'll talk more about Intel in a moment, but has definitely made some strides in this space, the next generation of vPro, Evo. And Dell is one of the companies that typically is first, very tightly partnered with Intel. So that's definitely something that caught my attention. Is going to be something to watch, are those early rollouts of those 11th gen and those new Evo based notebooks. And then to your point, this trend here, Pat, and we're going to see it from others. Dedicated collab companies like Poly are going to be rolling out products like this because there's a need for it. So Dell, interestingly enough, is sort of cross-placing itself inside of collab because it needs to. Same as what HP was doing with the new Macs and some of the others, building better mousetraps for collaboration, knowing that so much video and so much meeting technology is going to be driven by our PCs, whether that's our desktops or notebooks, building a better mousetrap. We all, if you're not you and I, and you're not in a position where you're constantly getting new toys and you're constantly playing with new technology, and you have the benefit of having lots of vendors putting new technology on your desk to try, you understand that doing Zoom meetings on a 4-year-old laptop with an old camera and a crappy microphone is a pretty terrible experience. But as we turn the knob to 11, I think you wrote an article with that in the headlines, Pat. As we turn the knob to 11 on making this stuff work better, it's going to make that remote work experience better. And let's face it, remote work is here to stay. Dell sees it, HP sees it, the video companies see it, the Zooms, the Microsofts, everyone sees it, but we needed to make it better. We haven't made it better enough, and some of these announcements are pushing the envelope on that. So kudos to Dell for that.
Yeah, I got a newfound respect, Daniel, for integrated systems with the Desk Pro. I pretty much written them off for dead. And then using the Desk Pro with you has really been a cool experience. And then on the opposite extreme, you have 100% PC based. I'm really excited about this in between. And I know being in between isn't always the best place to be. But look at the price differential. Desk Pro from Cisco is $6,000 street price, $10,000 list. And right here, we're looking at a video conferencing monitor for $1,149, right? And I know it's not the same, but I'm really interested to see what the quality trade-off is in this, and maybe this certification is a happy medium. We'll just have to see. All right. Next up is Lenovo, bringing out again a bevy of new products here. And one thing I really appreciated about Lenovo is its willingness to try new stuff and its innovation. And I think that Lenovo brought a lot of that here. They updated their Lenovo Yoga Slim with a new OLED display at a higher resolution and a much higher quality. It's pretty cool. It goes to 90 hertz as well. Typically, you don't see on a consumer laptop like this. The other thing that they did is they upgraded their all-in-one, and this is a really unique all-in-one. Check this picture out, Daniel. You can actually turn that display 90 degrees to go horizontal. So I guess if you want that Snapchat look, you have smartphone. Too bad Quibi or Kibi went out of business or got sold to Roku that had a completely vertical type of content. I was joking. People took me seriously when I was tweeting about this. I hope this isn't where monitors were going. But listen, Samsung, second year leaning into this horizontal aspect ratio, and I wish you're seeing it horizontal, not vertical, but who knows? Vertical displays could be the future. Here's the updated tab P11. Really, the only company to hang in there with the Surface from Microsoft. HP and Dell got out of the connected tablet market and really going after it. Much lower price than the Surface, and it comes with a Snapdragon chip. Imagine that, and all the awesome things that go with it. You might be saying, well, wait a second, what about 5G? Well, Lenovo has the first 5G laptop out there, so don't feel bad for them. Lenovo is also a company that hasn't abandoned VR and AR, and they come out with their third generation of smart glasses. Now, these are tethered to the PC, but it's incredible the staying power that this company has, because Dell and HP pretty much exited this market once they realized that it was in the long haul. So I give Lenovo credit for hanging in there. And I have an analyst, Anshul Sag, who is the industry expert on AR and VR that tells me this is the real deal.
Yeah, Lenovo always has a pretty deep bench, Pat. I didn't have a chance to attend the event this year, so great coverage on your end. I will say I've been pretty impressed using the 5G notebook. That's something that from the very beginning, the whole ACPC.
Oh, cool. I never got sampled that.
Haha.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah. But yeah, the 5G, and I used the ACPC with the LTE ahead of that. So, a very nice foundation. That's probably been the area in the integrated on the intelligent device side that I've been watching closest with Lenovo. But definitely sounds like the company's roaring ahead. All these PC makers are continuing to push the envelope, all of them chasing that growing PC business. You heard me, growing PC business. And of course,
24% growth in the fourth quarter, according to Canalys.
Yeah, pretty good growth, Pat. So yeah, those early reports of the demise of the PC, I think, have been largely overstated.
Yeah, and now the debate will be that's weird. Do you want to hit Intel? Like me or something?
Let's do it.
Oh, funny, that was me. Anyways, let's dive into Intel. I'm going to find a way to delete that real-time question. Isn't that funny? I put it in the chat, not anything else. Anyways.
Yeah, so a lot of things went on with Intel, and you hit on a few of them, and I know you covered it a little bit more in depth, but I think a couple of the things that caught my eye, 11th gen, the renaissance, you could call it, for the Intel Pentium and Celeron brands, really targeting education and some of the opportunities that lie there. This also came with updates to vPro and the Evo. And then additionally, a whole nother, Pat, side of what happened at Intel's event this year was some pretty significant announcements in Mobileye and the autonomous driving and vehicles effort. Let me ask you there, Pat, you've got multiple pieces there. Where do you think we should dive in first?
It's up to you, buddy. You want to hit? It's up to you. You lead it, man.
Let's start with the processors, and then let's jump over from 11th gen, and then we'll talk a little bit about Mobileye. So let's run down what you got there.
Yeah, sounds good. So let's hit the first one. First of all, GB. GB kicked it off with some corporate stuff around shipping 10th generation Ice Lake server. And I thought that was a good way to put that. Especially, it was good for GB to do that because as of this week, they probably didn't want their CEO to be talking too much about it. But that was a smart move. Let's talk about Evo for Chromebooks and Evo for 11th Gen vPro. So 11th Gen vPro came onto the scene. And by the way, them getting 11th gen Evo out there was about 6 months before you would normally expect vPro to come out. And then they've tacked on the experiential piece of it called Evo. And then to my surprise, even Evo for Chromebooks. And think of Evo as premium. Think of Evo as going through multiple tests to make the experience good. My big strategic takeaway from this is the increased rate that Intel is operating. And the second thing that we saw, and you mentioned this, Celeron and Pentium Silver for education, not really too interesting to me, but I think the Pentium brand makes a comeback, and to this day, people still know Pentium. And also thinking of the big picture, well, 1-out core, bringing in lower end brands helps protect it when they've got to take prices lower in education, and they can deliver the value, but decrease the potential damage that pulling it down there could make. All right, Intel gaming goes 11th gen. And what that means is, first of all, cranking wattage on those parts. We saw 11th gen at 15 watts, moving it up to 45 watts to hit H series AMD right between the eyes. And it's funny, I only realized this now, was there had to be some special work between Intel and Nvidia to make this stuff work. Intel didn't really talk about it, and Nvidia really didn't talk about it. But when I compared both of their notes and what they're doing, they're essentially helping each other out. One thing that I really want to see is, what will this 5 gigahertz turbo do? And as you know, Daniel, in gaming, single thread, even 2 or 3 thread going at 5 gig will help a lot. And Intel's also doing better power sloshing between the NVIDIA GPU and the Intel CPU, which takes collaboration that nobody wants to talk about. So just in time for the new RTX 3060 mobile out there. And I think Intel to me looks even more competitive in notebooks than it did last year.
Yeah, and you gotta acknowledge, I mean, again, another company that's demise was much larger, stated demise was much larger than reality, still has very strong market share, still has a very strong set of ecosystem relationships. And we talked a lot about this just related to the Pat Gelsinger appointment to CEO, but the company rolled out a dynamic set of new SKUs, kind of across the different sections of the notebooks, and is definitely going to see its SKUs inside of the major OEMs across the world. And what's happening with, like I said, what I mentioned with HP, what's happening with Dell was, with Evo and vPro. These devices are getting more robust. They're getting more capable, more connected. So, I'm cautiously optimistic, Pat, that that Dell is getting back on the right track, and the slate of announcements from this event were encouraging. Do you want to quickly touch on Mobileye?
Yeah, let's do that. I got to give credit to Mobileye. So first off, the run rate that they have is about a little over $1 billion, which for a business in its infancy is really, really good. And what I've really grown to appreciate about Mobileye is when they say something, it ends up being true. Their heritage of being the original L1 driving company and the original L2 driving company when it came to Tesla, in my mind, gives it credibility. And when Intel and Mobileye combined forces, Intel was working on L5 and L4 and even L3, combining that. And one of the coolest things that they did is they've integrated LiDAR into their stack. And LiDAR is typically that thing that looks like a police car siren at the top of these cars that are absolutely massive, and they draw a bunch of power. But Mobileye talked about that actually integrating this into their chipset. So you use vision as primary, and you use radar and LiDAR as secondary communication devices. The only other company that I'm aware of that also does this is On Semiconductor out there, and I think this is really cool. And as you can see on the screen, they came out with the trinity of this approach, which is a little bit different, which is ADAS as ADAS for redundancy, REM for using a crowd-sourced mapping technology, and an RSS model for decision-making governance. And the company had a different name for this before, but it's essentially, a lot of us don't want to talk about it, but when we're in an emergency and the car needs to swerve, are we going to hit the truck over here, or are we going to hit the school bus over here? And who is liable for damages? That is something we have to get to. And my final comment on this, Daniel, my apologies for sucking the oxygen out of this podcast, is that what was the final thing I was going to say? Actually, I completely forgot what I was going to say. So the floor is yours.
Just keep going. But the overall point here is that there was a series of really material announcements that, the theme from Intel was bringing AV, bringing autonomous vehicles to everyone in the shortest horizon possible. And you're starting to see encouraging signs of that. And by the way, that was a big underlying theme throughout the entire CES event. A lot of partnerships, a lot of alliances, a lot of alignment. You've got U.S. manufacturers, European manufacturers, Chinese manufacturers, and by the way, semiconductors and the semiconductor leaders like Intel, like Qualcomm, like Nvidia are all really taking a major stake. And by the way, they're all kind of working together to compete with Tesla, for what it's worth, because Tesla has obviously and clearly set itself apart in terms of its completeness. But these companies have some really great technology, Pat. So are we going to go to AMD?
We're going to go. Yeah, we're going to go. Let's go right into Nvidia. I'll admit I missed Jensen up on stage. He does his 8 p.m. Keynote, typically right ahead of the official CES keynote. And but the good news is that the company did bring out some pretty awesome sauce, and they leaned into games, and they rolled out Jeff Fisher, who runs all of the gaming for Nvidia. We don't see Jeff too often, but a really awesome and mild-mannered guy. I've gotten to know him over the last decade, and it's very simple. Nvidia brought out some new desktop parts, the 3060. Let me scroll down to that. Boy, we write a lot here. Yeah, I brought out the RTX 3060 for desktop, and that's at a lower price. Don't confuse that with the 3060 Ti. And they also brought out RTX for mobile. Imagine that. And I don't mean mobile the phone. I mean mobile as in gaming laptops. And we talked about Intel and how they were doing power sloshing together, moving power between CPU and GPU. And this was a pretty big announcement here. I got hit a lot on, hey, well, can they ship it? And here's my statement without, I'm not NVIDIA. You're going to have to ask NVIDIA. But the ability to ship a wafer is dependent on a lot of things. And one thing is the size of it. The smaller the chip, the more die per wafer. And typically the smaller the chip, the more good die per wafer that come out of the oven. And mobile is definitely smaller, so I'm expecting that. And the 3060, there must be something about that design that gives confidence to NVIDIA. It probably has less rasterization units. That's my first observation, which theoretically could mean that you can get more cookies out of the oven.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there, and definitely, the strong focus on notebooks and taking technology that has been powering some of the more comprehensive desktop units, making them available in their notebook portfolio. I think that was something that got really people fired up. Nvidia obviously and continually holds a very strong sort of core gaming community, Pat. They're sought after and looked after. The only thing that maybe gets more attention than Nvidia when it comes to gaming is the games themselves. So a very strong slate, and I know you're gonna make the case for AMD after this, because AMD also has a pretty strong following there. But before we do jump over to AMD, Pat, because I just want to wrap up one last thing, is Nvidia did have a fairly impressive set of announcements slated around their ADAS and mobile and autonomous vehicles. One of the things that definitely caught my attention, by the way, and I think it's worth everyone checking out, was the MBUX cockpit. And I don't know how many of you saw that, but that's the Mercedes-Benz. They launched a 56-inch AI-driven nerve center in partnership with NVIDIA. And this thing was pretty darn impressive. And if you get the chance, go check that out. It's the future of what you're going to see when you step into your vehicle, especially if you're a Mercedes-Benz driver. And one other thing of interest too was there was an announcement of a teaming up. I don't know if you're following, Pat. I follow them because they've had one of the fastest growing stocks of the year, but that was NIO. And actually Qualcomm and NVIDIA partnering up to deliver the kind of core ADAS and AI and automation technology for the future of the company's the core AI and compute that's going to power NIO's vehicle. So NVIDIA was doing a lot of things across the spectrum. But Pat, let's wrap this show up. Let's talk about AMD.
Yeah, let's go right to these cats, and they were very focused here. And by the way, thanks for bringing in that MBUX, MBUX, Mercedes-Benz UI.
It's cool. You gotta check it out.
Yeah. AMD's big announcement here, and for some reason it's not coming up. Let me add to the stream. Was their mobile Ryzen 5000. And no, this isn't for smartphones. I still get confused sometimes when the PC industry calls it mobile, but essentially it's an update to its Ryzen 5000 series. The key adder here is Zen 3, and with it comes its double-digit improvement in IPC. And AMD is also touting better battery life and continuing the march of the only 8-core thin and light laptop. And essentially what that means is this is 15 watts, and Intel's 8-core are 35 and 45 watts. So it is truly unique here, and I do expect them to pick up some market share. And as you can see, there are a ton of processors here, not just one, not just two, but an absolute onslaught of processors. And as you can see, fully replaces the 4000 series from top to bottom. AMD loves to show this because Intel is more targeted in its features, where AMD is essentially putting nearly every feature on every one of its parts. It looks like it's reserving a few SKUs to go lower price to keep them with Zen 2. But anyways, that's pretty much the highlights there. H series for gaming and content creators, and U series for thin and light notebooks.
Yeah, a pretty comprehensive set though, Pat, but focused, right? Not quite as all over the place. Lisa has always, delivered a pretty solid performance this year. A lot of talk. This week was sort of interesting though, Pat, as sort of a wrap-up theme, right? With CES going on, but concurrently some major shakeups inside of the semiconductor industry. The Nvidia deal was not a small deal, despite the fact that, it might have been small compared to the dollar associated with the Xilinx or the ARM deal. It was an interesting kind of a defensive / offensive move by Qualcomm that also impacted a whole set of these chip companies that were all kind of looking at this company But bigger than that was that, we saw when a company with the stake in the space that Intel has makes such a big change. It was a redirect, right? It was like a squirrel moment. Like I was watching CES, Pat, I was following all the news, and then all of a sudden it was like for a whole day, my attention had to turn completely to what was going on there. And I guess all I'm saying is it was really interesting to see the whole chip market, was in the middle of all these exciting launches, but concurrently all kind of got a re-examination by the markets because of what was this Gelsinger move going to mean. So, just kind of an interesting sidebar of how big broad industry news can impact an event moment, even though CES was such a big moment. And one other thing I did want to say as a wrap up, and I'd love to get you on this, but what do you think about virtual CES 2021? Because I got to admit, it just felt so different to me. It just felt, it's like, I don't know, when an event isn't live and you don't get that energy of hundreds of thousands of people and really long, uncomfortable lines, waiting for cabs and Ubers and long dinners and crowded hotels. There's just something, every event feels the same size now. You don't get the feeling that this event is the largest virtual event in the world. You just get the feeling it's just another event. Do you think it's sustainable?
Let me just put it this way. This year's CES reinforced to me that next year's CES will be live. We'll be there. And while there are things about it that I can't stand, nothing beats face-to-face.
Yeah. Well,
it's not scalable, but when you do get 500,000 of your best friends in one city, even though it's hard to get across the city, the ability to have human contact is a lot easier than getting on a separate plane and just meeting with one company. We can meet with 25 companies, and conversely, that one company can meet with 50 analysts if they want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've been able to create extraordinary scale by being remote, but concurrently we've, like I said, it's sort of just taken a lot of the shine off of every announcement. And it's nothing personal. It's something you and I have been coaching the industry on for the last 6-9 months since COVID. We have 1,000 companies plus all making all the big splashes all at the same time with no live element, with no ability to like really rile up a crowd. It's kind of like watching the NFL with an empty stadium. It's one thing to watch an NFL game on TV. It's another thing to be there in the stadium, unless you're a Browns fan, and then you're sort of in the moment right now because you're in the second round of the playoffs.
I give NFL credit. The fake cheering works for me. It's amazing, but it's not as good at being there. Daniel, we got to wrap this up. Great to see you. I just want to thank the audience for hanging in there. As you would expect, we went long. We had a lot of topics we had to get through. If you like what you heard, go to our YouTube channels and press that like button. And if you really, really, really like it, press the notification button. So you know when we are live, when we are going live, or when we have a new segment. Have a great weekend. If you follow the NFL, I hope your team wins and your GOATs have their day and you win all those amazing bets. If you get into that, I might have to bet my house on the Browns. Maybe not, but it's going to be more than a 10-point spread. I'm just glad that the Browns are in there. Have a good one. Take care.